Hi, I'm Jay Polaki, and this is the HR Bytes podcast, where HR practitioners share their think globally and act locally digital HR agenda. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My guest today is Mike Cilla. Mike, welcome to today's show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mike, you've been in the HR technology space for quite some time now. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what's keeping you excited these days?
Yeah, of course. And you're right. I've been in various types of roles across HR. I guess I like to just say at a high level over the last 15 years, I've kind of oscillated from the vendor side for different HR B2B vendors on both systems and in professional services, as well as a ton of different internal roles at startups and large organizations.
So, Mike, we're all experiencing this. It's like this community, awareness that AI is bringing to every function, every phase, every sphere of our lives today. How do you think we should be approaching automation and AI for the HR function in this really evolving time for HR folks?
It's a great question. It's obviously, is it peak hype cycle? Maybe, maybe not. I'm definitely super interested in it, and I follow a lot of different thought leaders. Ethan Mollick at Wharton is one of them. I think, he has kept me constantly curious and intrigued. But regarding HR specifically, I think there's a lot of different use cases across an HR function where different types of AI, I think AI also gets kind of used a little loosely. Obviously, the big one now is generative AI with all of the different chats out there. But I do think that when I think about from an HR systems perspective, it's about our data, right? And so I like to go back to the strategy of the HR data infrastructure. How do we keep it clean? How do we make sure that we have the right data in the right places? And then we can start thinking about how best to leverage the various aspects of machine learning that allow us to get different insights and have, more of that automated workflow across different data streams in the HR function and different roles and responsibilities.
I think we're thinking alike today because I liken this to getting that gym membership at the beginning of the year and then not going to the gym or not laying the groundwork to actually benefit from that gym membership. It's similar to, implementing all this technology and not being able to lay the groundwork first where we have clean data. So there's no garbage in, garbage out kind of scenario that happens. And definitely, are we using the tech that we have right now to its fullest extent before we go and bring another new shiny object in, right? So, you've seen all of this from both sides of the spectrum. How do you think we can continue to automate our HR function in today's day and age while keeping the human touch in the midst of all this technological revolution in our world of work?
Yes, exactly. Agree with all of that. I like to liken it to other, I guess you could say, sort of digital touch points that we already know, we live in, we see in, CRM based sort of environments where we're a consumer or some other, touch point in other systems where personalization has been sort of the key. How do we target individually? And so I think that that's where we need to look as well, so we don't lose sort of that individualized sort of human, aspect of it. The worst thing that could happen, think about HR, right? Employees are coming to HR for a variety of different things, and sometimes they're extremely important and extremely sensitive. And so the last thing that we want is some automated response, when an employee is in a critical sort of moment and they actually do need to have that sort of comfort from another human. So I think that's what we need to be mindful of. It's like we want to automate, we want to streamline, but we also need to be mindful of, the end user and what that experience looks like.
So crucial today, right? And a lot of thought leaders, CEOs of huge, humongous technology companies have been saying that AI is going to be smarter than us humans as soon as maybe next year or maybe 5 years, but everyone has an opinion. What do you foresee for the HR function today and in 2024 and beyond?
Well, let's step back out of HR just to address what you just mentioned about, the actual implications of this technology that seemingly has had a breakthrough, right? I don't know. I'm not a computer scientist. I have an IO psychology background that goes beyond a decade ago, but I still have a vague understanding of machine learning and how the technology that fuels a lot of this is sort of, laid the groundwork. And one of the most interesting things that I've learned recently is that even some of the largest companies, the Google, the Microsoft, the OpenAI, that have created all of this hype cycle technology that everyone is so interested in, they don't even really fully understand the mechanisms behind how it's working, right? And we go back to the data thing, right? These large language models are being trained on vast amounts of data, but not everyone really knows where it's coming from. It's a lot of it is public access, just widely accessible data on the internet. And that's why we see the hallucinations that we do. But most intriguing to me is that I think these large organizations that are fueling these extremely expensive technologies don't really understand it, or constantly being surprised at the behavior that we're seeing and the functionality that exists. So I don't know that we fully understand how much we don't know about what to expect with this type of technology.
I can't agree with you more. That's exactly
So
what I'm seeing too.
regarding HR, I would just say this. I think it's imperative, and I'm lucky that my CHRO is super interested in this stuff. She encourages me to use it in my own role, and I'm very open and honest about when and how I do. And so I think it's a matter of awareness. It's a matter of sparking curiosity, obviously being mindful of data protection, data governance. HR, we work a lot with a lot of sensitive PII. So just knowing sort of what those implications are. But aside from that, I think that there's aspects where this type of technology can improve and increase operational effectiveness for a variety of different COEs across the HR team. I want to give you an example. I was just talking to one of my team members this morning in preparation of meeting with you today, and I totally forgot about something that she implemented a few months back, where she had used ChatGPT to help refine a Python script that she needed, because we have a lot of manual processes at this organization, and we're unpacking a lot of that and actually trying to increase operational effectiveness. But she reminded me that she had used ChatGPT to create this Python script to pull data from a file and then load it automatically into another software as a service that we were using for our talent management team. And I was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. And she goes, yeah, that's because it's working. And that's what we need to do, right? We need to automate things that we don't need to constantly have to be diving into to tweak. So anytime you can remove that manual intervention piece, I think that that's where we're going to see a lot of effectiveness increases across the HR function.
Great. That's what we call being agile as a gecko here at HR Geckos.
Nice.
So, there's a lot of stuff being thrown at us. Some of it is hallucinatory, some of it is real. Some of it could be really beneficial, and some of it could be really scary. Sometimes we wonder if we're in this sci-fi movie going forward in life and at work. What are you most worried about this year for the HR function in general? And if you had a magic wand, what would be your ideal solution to resolve this challenge?
That's a great question. And, I think my concerns just regarding the HR function don't really pertain to AI too much. Again, how much we don't know, right? It's more a matter of just what we've seen recently. I think, during the pandemic, HR teams were on point. It was a lot of reactive fire drill work. We were there, we were in the trenches, deciding, what roles needed to be where, what could be hybrid, what could be remote, and all the other things. Execs were tapping us for a lot of that support. It seems like even following that, there have been market factors that have led to a lot of businesses having to restructure and reorganize. Who else gets tasked with that work? I personally have lived that life at other organizations. It's very difficult, when you have to be in the trenches of rifts and have to, actually provide notifications. And I've seen the HR teams across variety industries, variety sectors being pulled into that work, and they're getting slashed as well. So my biggest sort of concerns around the HR function is that, resources constraining, these organizations, they're going to probably relay back to administrative aspects of HR. And we're not going to see the growth and investment that the function really deserves. Successful organizations, that might not be the case, and we might continue to see, innovation incubated in those functions within those successful organizations. But the not so successful businesses and organizations out there, the HR team might end up becoming more back to its predecessor sort of perspective of just more administrative work or back office work. And that would make me sad.
I know. I think about it. It would make all of us sad, right? um, so in the midst of all this, what's one piece of advice you have for our HR colleagues who are looking to adopt or adapt or learn new technology?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that just it's funny. I'll go back to Ethan Mollick because he just released a book and it's amazing. It's a great book. He actually refers to this as an alien brain that we've created. And early on, I'm only a couple chapters in, but I would just say, familiarize yourself. Don't be scared. I think the more that you interact with this technology, the more that you'll become comfortable with it. I'm not a huge fan of the term prompt engineering that we keep seeing. I think it's just learning how to, work with the machine, understand how to get it to do what you need. You can actually feed it information yourself. I've created my own GPT that's an executive coach that I use to help keep me on point for my own leadership needs as a senior director here at Central Health. So I think just engage with it. Engage with the curiosity, be curious, and there's tons of information. That's the problem, right? There's more information now because of the hype cycle that it's difficult to distill the signal from the noise. So I think that's where folks are going to probably have to figure out their bearings. How do you figure out, where the most valuable information that will help you engage with these technologies is, and then utilizing it that way?
Wonderful. Well, I'm reading that book too, and it's actually on our bookshelf selections for our May newsletter. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it from everyone who's reading it. I'm, really curious about how he is positioned, and Professor Malik, I'm talking about his book. He has positioned, his academic research and how the reality of it is working out in the academic space, right? Because students are the ones who are using all this tech more than anyone else, and they are the future workforce. So, I'm very curious about this. So that
Yeah.
brings us to the funner part of our conversation, if this wasn't fun. This is the question connection round, Mike, where we'd like to, help our audience connect with you better. So who is one person who you gained in your network in the past year in the HR tech space that you think we should all connect with and learn from?
That's a difficult question because I could probably just spout off a bunch of people. If I had to pick one, and I don't actually know him personally, but I've been a follower of his for quite some time, Max Brower. I think he's actually working at Atlassian now. That's super creepy of me. No, Max, he is so great about posting very pragmatic and useful tips and tricks around a variety of different types of HR tech applications. And what I find most useful about him is he's so pragmatic and practical that if you're in need of just finding a solution that will save you hours of work, Max has probably found that for you already. So Max Brower is somebody I'd recommend.
Wonderful. What's your favorite HR podcast or HR book or HR technology related book?
Quite a few podcasts. I've always been a big fan of HBR's Dear HBR, where it's like an anonymous write-in podcast where they'll have a subject matter expert kind of address a variety of letter writers. I was actually a letter writer that was included in one of their episodes once, so that was super cool. But Adam Grant, I'm a huge fan of his. So WorkLife podcast through TED Podcast is really cool. And then I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni from the Table Group. And so At the Table is also a really good one. I like that one, especially because they're about 20 to 30 minutes long. So it's a good commute and you hear the entirety of the podcast. So it's really useful as well.
So we are curating an HR playlist for working from anywhere. What's a song that you'd like to add to it?
Yeah, so I'm actually a drummer, and I worked at Guitar Center earlier in my career. So very, very interested in this question. And what I will say, again, probably could have easily, came up with a lot of different songs. But I always like to think of folks like you and I, Jay, in HR and wanting to disrupt and really innovative as renegades of HR. And so I will go back to Rage Against the Machine's Renegades of Funk for our soundtrack.
Awesome. Viva Revolution.
Nice.
Would you recommend a LinkedIn Learning or an e-learning course for HR technology for our HR colleagues?
Oh, I'm sure there's so much stuff out there. you know, I really don't have one off the top of my head. I think, again, I just try to stay curious and follow different thought leaders, and usually I'll find resources that get teed up. I guess I would just suggest anything that Ethan Mollick is suggesting if you're interested in AI.
Wonderful. And do you like working from a physical office location, working from a remote location, or a combination of both?
I prefer a combination, and that's the way I've structured my team. We're all hybrid, so we do have dedicated desks. So we have a location where we do typically meet up, but within that, I would say, you know, I'm also the type of employee and leader who is very flexible and trust my people to get the work done. And if they need to be remote, then work remotely. But I do also value the it's sort of intangible value of being together in person in an office at times when needed.
Wonderful. Well, Mike, you do a lot in your community. How do you like giving back to the HR community, especially?
Well, I consider time probably one of the most valuable resources we have. So to that end, I just try to engage with the local different HR meetups in Austin. There's quite a few. As I'm saying this, if any of my connections see this, they're probably like, yeah, he hasn't been to one in a while. But I do try to get out, and I try to be a serial networker. And whenever I do get pinged that isn't a salesperson on LinkedIn, I do try to be available and take an informational interview or a call from anyone who wants to speak with me. So yeah, just any way that I could dedicate time that I have available to help folks out.
Wonderful. Well, a lot of what you said today resonates with my work here at HR Geckos, and I'm sure our audience has gained a lot of insights into how they should be approaching all of this newfangled tech in our space. If they want to reach you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn. You could find me pretty easily on there. I have a very large network on LinkedIn. I don't really do too much other social media, so I'd just say find me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights today, Mike. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has really taken a lot of insights from this short conversation. I look forward to hearing more from you as we interact and, following you on social.
Jay, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Same.
All right. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Listen on your favorite podcast channels and watch us on YouTube. Follow us on social. We are on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Join our budding community on LinkedIn and Facebook. Ask, answer, advise.